There always comes a moment when the silence begins to speak louder than the conversations that used to fill her days. In the beginning, she feels free, confident, even excited. She believes she made the right choice, that she can do better, that she can build a life that has nothing to do with you. She convinces herself that losing you isn't a loss at all. And for a while, she really believes it. Because distraction is easy when life is busy, when friends are loud, when attention is available, and when she is surrounded by anything that keeps her mind off the absence she created. But distraction has an expiration date, and when the noise fades, that's when reality steps in. It's in the small, quiet moments where you start to show up again. Moments she didn't expect. She sits in her room at night, scrolling through her phone, realizing she no longer has someone to just talk to about the day, someone who would actually listen, not just hear, someone who understood her tone, her moods, her silence. She didn't appreciate the peace you brought to her life when it was there, but now she begins to feel the difference. Silence used to feel like independence. Now it feels like something is missing. And it doesn't happen all at once. Regret is slow. It starts like a soft whisper, a memory, a laugh, a song, a joke. Only you two understood. And then it becomes a feeling in her chest that she can't quite name, but she knows it wasn't there before. When life gets quiet, she begins replaying moments, things she said, the way she walked away, the way she thought you would always be there. She believed you would remain as a backup plan. But when you didn't chase her, when you didn't break, when you didn't fall apart publicly for her to see, the silence became a mirror she had to look into. She starts feeling that distance. The world might see her smiling, posting, living, but inside the silence is speaking the truth. She begins to wonder what you're doing, how you feel, whether you think of her at all. And that uncertainty forms its own weight. She used to know your thoughts, your routine, your heart. Now she doesn't, and that unknown is where regret lives. Because silence is not just absence, silence is reflection. Silence is where truth grows. And eventually she realizes that while she walked away from you, she also walked away from a version of herself she only ever felt when she was with you. And that kind of regret doesn't fade quickly, it lingers. It teaches, it reminds. Eventually, the silence becomes undeniable, and that's when the regret truly begins. She thought moving on would be simple because she believed she had options. She assumed that attention equals connection and interest equals value. She thought the world was waiting for her the moment she stepped out of your life. This is where so many people get fooled. They confuse excitement with depth, temporary validation with lasting intimacy. So when she walks away, she believes she's stepping toward something better, something new, something that promises more than what she thinks she had. But the truth is, most of what she finds out there is surface level, shallow, and inconsistent. It may look good at first, but eventually reality reveals itself in the simplest ways. She begins to notice a difference between someone who wants her for the attention she can provide and someone who actually valued who she was. You didn't try to impress her. You didn't try to possess her. You cared. You showed up. You listened. And whether she realized it or not, that is rare. So rare that she never saw it clearly until she stepped into situations where that same consistency wasn't there. She left something real for something she assumed would feel better. But now she finds herself dealing with conversations that lack depth, people who are only present when they want something, and connections that start fast and fade even faster. It's when she is sitting across the table from someone who doesn't look her in the eyes with understanding that she begins to remember what it felt like when you did. It's when she tells a story and the other person doesn't get the meaning behind it that she starts to miss the ease of your connection. It's when she feels the need to pretend, to perform, to be interesting, instead of simply being herself, that she starts realizing how comfortable she felt being with you. She begins comparing, even if she swears she isn't, and comparison is the birthplace of regret. Because no matter how hard she tries to pretend the new is better, her heart knows when something doesn't feel like home. And you were home, not because you were perfect, but because you were real. You were grounded, you were present. And presence is something she didn't understand the value of until she experienced the absence of it. She thought she could replace you with something shiny and different. But different does not mean better. Eventually, she finds herself missing the calm instead of the chaos, missing the certainty instead of the chase, missing the peace instead of the thrill. And that realization doesn't come loud. It comes slowly, quietly, through everyday life, through every interaction that reminds her of what she once took for granted. And when the comparison becomes undeniable, the regret becomes unavoidable. When she begins to realize the emotional stability, peace, and reassurance you brought into her life, that's when regret starts to settle in. Because peace isn't something you can replace with excitement. Excitement fades, attraction shifts. But emotional safety, the feeling of being understood, the ease of being able to express herself without judgment, that's something her heart remembers long after she's walked away. At first, she may have convinced herself that leaving was the right decision. She told herself that she needed something more. She believed that maybe love was supposed to feel like constant intensity, unpredictability, sparks flying all the time. But she forgot that sparks burn out. And when they do, there's nothing left to hold on to unless there's real substance beneath it. You provided that substance. You offered consistency. You showed up daily, not just when things were exciting. And now that you're gone, she realizes how rare that was. She starts comparing how she felt with you to how she feels now. With you, she felt grounded. With others, she may feel dizzy. With you, she felt safe to be vulnerable. With others, she feels guarded. With you, she could talk in silence and still feel connected. With others, every conversation feels like an effort or a performance. She didn't know the difference then, but now she does. She didn't understand what emotional security meant until she found herself without it. And it's not just something she thinks about once. It creeps in during the late nights, in the quiet moments when there's no distraction. When she lies in bed and her mind isn't busy, that's when the truth hits hardest. She begins to remember the tone in your voice when you reassured her, the way you listened, the way you cared without needing recognition. She remembers how arguments weren't battles, but opportunities to understand each other. She remembers how you didn't punish her for being emotional. You didn't turn her feelings against her. You didn't weaponize her vulnerability. She felt safe. And that is not easy to replace. When she finds herself in situations where she has to hide pieces of herself or dilute her feelings to avoid being seen as too much, she remembers you. When someone new dismisses her concerns or mocks her sensitivity, she remembers you. When she's with someone who only loves the easy parts of her, she remembers how you held every part, even the difficult ones. And slowly, she begins to realize that emotional security is the foundation of real love. It's the thing she walked away from without fully understanding its value. And that's the beginning of the regret she can't escape. There comes a moment when the silence isn't just silence anymore. It becomes a mirror. When you stop chasing, stop calling, stop explaining yourself, she's forced to sit with the reality of what she chose. At first, she might have felt confident, even relieved, believing her decision was right. She may have had distractions, new conversations, people cheering her on, telling her she did the smart thing, but those voices get quiet, distractions fade. And when life slows down, the truth creeps in. Your absence speaks louder than anything your presence ever could. Because the quiet after someone who genuinely cared leaves is a different kind of quiet. It's heavy, it's noticeable, it makes her realize that something meaningful is missing. She starts to replay memories not because she wants to, but because her mind won't let her avoid them. Your laugh, your consistency, the little things you did that she barely acknowledged before now feel like losses she can't replace. What she once overlooked suddenly becomes rare in a world where most people are temporary, shallow, and self focused. This is where regret begins to take shape. Not all at once, but slowly, steadily. It's not the big moments she regrets first, it's the small things. The way you held her when she was upset. The way you remember details she didn't think mattered. The way you made plans instead of excuses. The effort, the patience, the emotional presence you offered without conditions. Those are the things she starts comparing. And the person she left for, or the lifestyle she chose, doesn't feel as fulfilling as she expected. They don't offer the same emotional depth. And she realizes that emotional depth was what made her feel loved, even when she didn't appreciate it at the time. And the irony is this: she starts to understand your worth only when she faces the absence of it. She sees your value not in your presence, but in the void your absence created. That's when she begins to wonder if she made the biggest mistake of her life. But by the time she realizes this, you are no longer waiting. You are no longer reaching out. You have learned to live without her. You found your peace. You've steadied your heart. This becomes the turning point. The moment she realizes the regret isn't just about losing you, it's about losing the version of herself she could only be with you. The version who felt safe, supported, understood. Once she recognizes that, she can't unsee it. And that is when she understands the gravity of her choice. And that's when the regret becomes real and undeniable. There comes a moment in her journey where the excitement of the new, the thrill of independence, or the comfort of temporary attention wears off. And what's left isn't the freedom she thought she wanted, but an unexpected emptiness she didn't prepare for. This is when reality starts to hit, because before, she didn't have to deal with real silence. She had your love, your effort, your presence as her emotional safety net. Even when she took it for granted, it was still there, but now it's gone. Now she has to actually feel the absence she once assumed would always be filled. This is where her regret strengthens, because she begins noticing that every person who comes into her life isn't you. They don't listen like you. They don't care like you. They don't understand her inner world the way you did. They might be fun, attractive, or exciting for a moment, but that depth of emotional connection isn't there. And deep down, whether she wants to admit it or not, that depth is what made her feel secure. That depth is what made her feel seen. When she can't find it again, she starts to reflect, and that reflection hits harder than anything else. This is when she begins checking your social media, not to talk to you, but to see how you're living without her. And what she sees matters. If you are depressed, begging, or chasing, she feels justified. But if you are growing, improving, smiling again, living your life with purpose and steadiness, it scares her more than any silence ever could. Because now she realizes you weren't dependent on her. You didn't break, you didn't collapse, you didn't need her to define your life. You got stronger, you leveled up, and that is when the regret shifts from emotional to personal. It becomes something she can't shake. Because she didn't just lose love, she lost someone who was evolving, someone who was improving, someone who is becoming the version of himself that another woman in the future will be grateful to receive. And nothing stings more than realizing you had something rare, something valuable, something meaningful, and you walked away from it thinking there was something better waiting. Now she starts wondering if she misjudged everything, if she misjudged you, if she misjudged love, if she misjudged what she truly needed. And this regret doesn't come with fireworks. It comes in quiet moments when she's alone, when the people around her aren't providing anything real, when her thoughts echo louder than any conversation could. She begins to see that your silence wasn't weakness, it was strength, it was self-respect. And that realization is the one that stays with her the longest. And in that moment, the regret becomes something she can't escape. When she reaches a stage where regret is fully formed, the question becomes, what do you do next? Because this is the moment where a lot of men make the mistake of reopening the door too fast, too eager, too willing to fall back into something that once existed. But what you have now is different. You're not the same person who once waited for her attention, who once needed her validation to feel secure. You have grown through the silence. You found pieces of yourself you didn't know were missing. So the way you respond to her return matters more than anything else. The simple trick here is not to punish her, not to rub her regret in her face, not to act cold or distant for the sake of pride. The key is to remain the same version of yourself you became in the silence. Calm, grounded, self-respecting. You do not chase, you allow. You do not cling, you observe. Because when she comes back, she is no longer testing your feelings. She is testing your strength. She wants to know if the man she left behind is gone. She wants to know if the man in front of her now is solid, confident, emotionally stable, and self-sustaining. This is where your growth becomes visible in real life. You communicate differently. You don't react emotionally. You don't try to convince her of your value. You live your value. Your energy speaks before your words do. You show that your world doesn't revolve around her, even if you still care. Your presence no longer comes from desperation, it comes from choice. And that's the turning point. Because the thing that makes someone regret losing you isn't distance alone, it's distance combined with your evolution. You grew while she wandered, you healed while she searched, you found inner peace while she chased temporary distractions. And now when she looks at you, she sees someone who doesn't just look stronger, he is stronger. She sees someone who didn't wait to feel chosen. He chose himself. That's power. Not loud power, but quiet, undeniable power. The kind of energy that can't be faked, can't be acted, can't be imitated. It comes from real work done within. So when she comes back, don't throw away the lessons for a moment of emotional softness. You don't need to reject her. You don't need to chase her. You simply hold your frame. You move slow. You allow her to show change, not speak it. You let her earn back access to the version of you she once thought would never leave. Your silence built your respect. Your growth protects it. The moment she returns is not the end of the story, it's the beginning of a new one, if you choose to write it carefully. This time, you aren't proving your worth to her, you're allowing her to prove hers to you.